Hi guys, what's up? It's your girl Nora back again with another podcast. We are so excited to bring back the podcast in 2023. Happy New Year to you. We haven't talked in a long time, but we're so happy to be back. This is the National Youth and Pensa podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe our channel. You can also listen to us on the way to church, on Spotify, on Apple Music. We have some brand new fun, spicy, juicy conversations that we're excited to have with you. So, let's get started. Did I say my name is Nora? I don't know. I don't think I did. Did I? Well, my name is Nora Essien. You can follow me on the Youth and Pensa page, Youth Pensa USA on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We everywhere. So make sure to follow us. But yeah, let's get started. I want to introduce our guest. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself.
Okay.
But this is my dear sister. She's more than a sister. Okay, she's more than a friend. I don't know what title to give her, but we are so close. We've known each other since you were
fetus.
Yeah,
Maybe
basically.
even before then.
Before then, I knew you.
You knew me.
I knew you in your womb.
Hey, in my
mother's womb, not your womb.
There we go.
But yeah, so
yes. Well, hi everyone. My name is Darice Oppong. Previously Darice Cujo. I guess. Do you want to tell me about myself?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm one of 5 siblings. So I have 5. There's 4. There's 5 of us in total, but I have 4 siblings. Recently married. I have been in Church Pentecost pretty much all my life. Currently, my husband and I live in Macon, which is about 2 hours from Atlanta area. We're just working and serving in ministry down there, so it's good to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you.
Hey.
All right, so I know you guys are here for a reason, right? You guys saw the title. I don't know what it is about young people, but whenever we talk about love, whenever we talk about relationships, marriage, you guys come.
They come running.
You come in your numbers. It's very nice.
That is funny.
Yes, so make sure to share this podcast once. We are watching it now. So make sure that you share the link. But let's get into it. We are going to talk about what the church doesn't tell you about marriage, okay? Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes is, marriage is not a destination, it's a journey. And that's something super, super important. We came across this topic. We went to dinner on, last Tuesday. Mm-hmm. And, I was telling Darice all about my love problems. Okay? Oh, all about the men in my life. Oh.
It's okay. It's all right. Mm-hmm. We were all there. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm still there. But we are, we talked about, marriage, because she was recently married, almost 2 years. 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Almost 2 years. Great. Wedding was beautiful. And I'm not only saying that because, I helped you small, but it was beautiful.
It was fun.
It's always great to see young people finding love.
Yeah.
And in Christ is a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful.
And it's so interesting that, your generation, a lot of you guys are getting married. I mean, last week, the proposals, back and forth.
Jesus.
Last year. This year.
This year's intense, okay?
I literally have so many dresses for so many weddings. It's a lot.
I'm booked and busy this year with the weddings. It's coming.
It's
coming
a lot.
live.
Right, and meanwhile, my generation, we are still finding love. And I'm like, maybe we didn't drink the right milk or something.
No.
We don't know.
It takes time.
Yeah, it does take time,
we'll
for
get
sure.
Into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but let's get into it. So I want to start with the first question.
Okay.
Why did you get married?
Why did I get married? So that's such a big question, because it's I don't really know. I know why, but you just kind of, when you're in it, you don't really have to meditate on that. But basically, so we got married in 2021, so right after the pandemic. At the time, Courtney and I were both living in Macon, and we had been dating. We started dating in 2017. So this year, I think it'll be almost 7 years since we've been together, which is really crazy. It feels like just yesterday.
I know.
But, so we started dating in Macon. We were in Macon. We were both in school at the time. We both graduated. We both decided we felt like the Lord was still calling us to stay in Macon. So we were there. And, I heard this phrase of if you're looking for someone to marry, you want to find someone who is kind of walking beside you, like, you know, where your life is going as a single person, as someone who's following Christ, you see where your life is going, and if someone else is with you, like, kind of walking along that direction, then you can start to think, okay, you might be the person that I'm supposed to do life with. And that was essentially what happened. Like, we were already dating, we were already together, we did ministry together, we were in a band, we really did a lot of stuff together. And we were there, and we've been dating for a long time, and at that point we were like, there's no point in just dragging it out to just date for dating's sake. If the purpose of dating is to marry, then let's get married. Now, granted, I think we were kind of young. Like, I mean, I was 24 when I got married, which in, I guess, African community, it feels young. But like, all of my college friends got married like right after we graduated. So I graduated in 2019, like everyone like after that got married.
The next step.
Yeah, like 2021, like we were kind of like the last ones there. So just obviously knowing yourself, knowing what's good for you. For me, I know I needed to be married younger because I like the idea of just growing with my husband as time goes. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's so interesting. I think, especially us in our African household, once you graduate,
listen, where's your husband?
Where is your husband? Okay, where is your husband? I have graduated long ago. Where is he?
Listen, that's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, do your thing.
Well, in my mind, I was just like, I feel like in our, like, with our families and our parents, like, I think maybe after you reach, like, your mid-20s, that's when parents start asking, like, where's your husband? Like, what's going on here? This, that, and the other, right? But when I was in high school or whatever, like, I think we have to look back in time, right? Nobody really encouraged us to date. So it's like, you're asking me for my husband, but I've been at home all this time studying my books. I'm married to my book. What husband? Like, where's his husband? He's supposed to knock on the door and come and find me? Like,
that's probably what I should have done. I should have studied my books. But instead I was outside in the streets, you know?
Screaming. Yeah, but it's just a matter of like, I think, obviously, and I think dating looks different. Like, finding a spouse looks different in different seasons. So like, if you are someone who is in college still, obviously in college is a good time because you have people that are all in the same, like, stage of life as you, versus when, like, I have a lot of friends who are outside of college who dating life is just different because we are adults. We are working real jobs. We are doing real things. So, you know, you have to kind of make that next effort. So it's a different level of work, but I think it's still, you know, just finding someone who's walking alongside the path that God has laid for you, someone who can be your support in that.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, you know, for you, it was important for you to grow with somebody. Yeah. And I think that's something that we all strive for. Yeah. But it's not something that we always achieve, right?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it takes us a long time because we ourselves have to grow. Maybe there's a growth process or a maturity process that we have to go through to get to.
And that's true. That's true. Yeah.
And so I guess for you and Quentin, what indicated to you that he was the one and then you were the one to him?
Yeah. I think for me, like, I in my mind thought that when I came to college, I thought I was going to get married, like, later in life because that was just the trajectory that I thought I was on. Like, I had dibble-dabbled in dating in high school and stuff, and it just wasn't good for me. So I, in a way, was kind of punishing myself. Like, I was punishing myself for the things that I didn't strive to be or set myself up to be. And so I was like, you know what, Lord? It's just going to be me and you until I'm 30, and we're just going to hang out and do what we're doing. Well, and we're going to hang out and do what we're doing. But like God had to sit me down and say, like, I never told you that. Like, you put that on yourself, right? You kind of put that limit on yourself.
Right.
And so really, I just wasn't looking for anybody. And Quentin and I, like I said, our friend group became really close. Like, we became really good friends. We took classes together, this, that, and the other. And as life just kind of led us together, we decided, like, hey, like, you might be someone who not only is compatible with me, but, like, you understand the culture, which is really important to me, like, understanding just where I come from, my family life, and things like that. And I think the biggest thing was I wanted to feel safe with somebody. And, like my husband, like, we have very similar testimonies, very similar backgrounds, very similar experiences, and neither of us judged each other. I think both of us looked at each other like, oh, you are too perfect, I can't handle you. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, we kind of we both assumed that the other person was, like,
wasn't good enough for
not necessarily good enough, but, like, more like too, like, holy, that we were, like, filthy rags.
Wow.
When in reality, like, marriage is supposed to really heal you of a lot of things. It's supposed to heal you and grow you. And so I realized, like, okay, Quentin, like, even though he's like human, like all of us, we all have our walks, we all have our shortcomings, and I really felt like I could learn a lot from him, and vice versa, he could learn a lot from me, and our stories just healed each other. And I realized, like, wow, like, you can love God, you can maybe go to the left a little bit, you know, and live life, and then come back to God, and he can really restore your life.
Right.
And I think we both learned that from each other, that it brought us closer together when we were like, you know what, I think God is trying to do something with our marriage. Okay. And I think God is trying to show, because really at the end of the day, your marriage is a display of the gospel. It's a display of the church, Christ in the church. And so, like, what is God trying to show from your marriage? And for us, he was trying to show that I can restore you from brokenness to wholeness. And I think that's what for me, that's what brought me together with my sunshine.
That was deep. That was so beautiful.
With my sunshine.
Okay. I'm emotional. So I want to get into dating a little bit, because I know, like, Church of Pentecost, when it comes to dating, that's such a taboo word. But, you know, we're in 2023. We know it happens. The process of getting to know somebody until, you're ready to be more serious and take this step into marriage. But I want to ask you, what are things that you practiced or didn't practice while you were dating that you see impacts your marriage now?
Yes, that's a really good question. So I heard it on another podcast. I think it was by Ben Stewart. I'll have to find it. Maybe we can link it in the show notes or whatever. But he was basically explaining dating like it's an opportunity to evaluate whether or not this person could be a life partner. Because that's really all you're doing. Like, dating is just evaluating. I'm trying to see, are you compatible with me? Are our lives going in the same direction? Do we want the same things? Do we not want the same things?
Right.
Maybe for you feel like God has called you to be a missionary, but for me, I feel like God has called me, like, to the local community. Okay, our lives are going in two different directions. Then that's not really for us.
Right.
So it's just, I feel like we should reframe the conversation of dating to, I'm just trying to, like, kick it with somebody, or just, find companion or, like, company or whatever, to I'm really trying to evaluate whether this person would be a good fit in my life to help me achieve whatever God has called me to do, right? And vice versa. Like, can I be a good fit for this person's life to help them achieve wherever God has led them or calling them to? Yeah. So, I don't know. I think for the things that we did or didn't do in our dating relationship, because we both had past struggles, we both dated before, and we had gone too far with different relationships, and so when we got together, we were really good friends before that. We didn't want to do that again. Like, we wanted, because I know for me, like, every relationship I had prior, I think, led to some sort of heartbreak and some sort of like, and some sort of like, me feeling less than. And like I said, because we were such good friends, we didn't want that for each other. It's either we kind of came into it knowing, like, either we're gonna get married or we're going to break up. Right. And if we broke up, I still wanted to be your friend.
Friends. Okay.
Like, I still wanted to be able to look at you in the eye and not feel guilty of, like, all the things that we did that we weren't supposed to do.
Right.
So we had to really, and I think it's knowing yourself, right? No one can read your mind. So you know yourself. You know what you can handle, you know what you can't handle. Right. You know that if you're not supposed to be, cuddling on the couch with your man at 9 o'clock, don't do it.
It's the lust for me. Don't do
it. Just don't do it. Because like you said, what will happen is, I kind of had this realization when I got married, like, who I am is who I'm going to be in my marriage. Right. There's not going to be like a magic switch, like all of a sudden my last name has changed and now I'm a different person. No. Who I am is who I'm going to be. And what no one talks about is that, like, you also need to practice self-control in marriage. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't stop.
Oh, we will get there.
It doesn't stop.
We'll get there. Hold that
thought. Wait. Like,
we will get there.
And so I think a lot of times we talk about marriage like it's beautiful, but marriage is not the savior. Like, Jesus is the only one who can save you and hold you, right? And so marriage is not the end-all, be-all to keep me from falling, right? It's a place to hold you accountable, and it's a place to have companionship and all the things. But if we understand marriage, that's the goal, then we will date in a way that protects our heart as an individual, but also will protect the other person's heart in the long run.
That was good, y'all. Okay, this is the reason why we ended dinner like we have to do a podcast.
I know. Because we're just like, I was like, we should hit record.
No, honestly, from the restaurant, because this is just
It was deep.
too good. This is just too good. And so I think, I don't even know where to go with this because there's so many different processes.
I know.
Do you think dating was necessary? And I want to separate that from courtship because I think, you know, there's different levels nowadays. There is
The
talking, then there's dating, there's courtship. You know, there's situationships, there's entanglements. It's a lot.
Entanglements. Listen,
so, do you think that was necessary? And do you think the dating process is also a huge indicator to what your married life is going to be?
Yes.
Or is that just a small piece?
No. Dating is huge. Dating is huge, and it's good to date for a while. I think when you're young, like I was. So Quentin and I, we started dating when I was 20. I wasn't gonna get married at 20. Okay, I wasn't ready. Okay,
Mm-hmm. She wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready. Okay, and we were only together for like a year or some change, and I really wanted to know the person I was gonna marry before I married them. So Quentin and I dated for 4 years. Now, granted, I think that's too long. I think that's too long.
Okay.
It depends on where you are in your stage of life.
Right.
Like
correct.
if you are an adult and you're out of college, I really wouldn't recommend don't date for more than like 2 years. Because at that point, you know yourself, you know what you want. I was still in college and I was still kind of figuring out, and likewise my husband, we were both in college, we were both kind of figuring out what do we want for our lives, what are we trying to build. And so like I said, we were really building together. So it took us a while to figure out ourselves individually and then figure out what we wanted as a couple, right?
Yeah.
So I do think dating is necessary because it gives you again a chance to evaluate, does this person, do they help me achieve wherever God has called me to be, or are they kind of pulling me back? Because let's be honest, like there are some relationships that I see where, you know, there's, what is the phrase in the Bible? Unequally yoked, right?
Yeah.
Like that's important. Like I know sometimes when we say a lot of churchy phrases that like it becomes like what are we actually talking about? You want to find someone who's going to help elevate you, not someone that you feel like you have to pull or drag. And now, granted, you will learn from your spouse, but it has to be kind of like an equal balance. Because when you're married, you're equals. Like you and your husband are equals. Yeah, okay, your husband is like the head of the household, but like wives,
everyone has their roles.
Everyone has their roles, and wives have a huge influence over husbands.
Okay.
Listen, what women? Okay, I'm just saying. Like, so we just need to learning. I think learning the principles of marriage and allowing yourself to, I don't say practice, but like keeping that in mind as you're dating will help you once you are married.
Right.
Because then I think it will again protect your heart, but I think it would also just help you in the long run.
Yeah.
Again, because you'll get to know your husband. I feel like for me, like I really knew, like I always say, like I married my best friend. Like my husband and I, like we are good friends. Like we can laugh, we can kiki, we can haha, but we're also like he's my husband, right?
Right.
And so I think it's giving yourself the opportunity to not only fall in love, but just be a friend to this person.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal.
All right, so I have another question because we get this a lot. We just had our single summit a couple of weeks ago around Valentine's Day, and one of the questions that was brought up was, you know, how old should you be to start the dating process? I know you started when you were 20. Do you feel like that's a healthy age, or is that based off of maturity levels?
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, in general, there's really no point in dating in high school. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Irrelevant.
You won't see them again.
You won't, like, just don't do it. Because, like, I mean, high school, you're still under your parents' roof. Like, you're not really developing your own person yet. So high school, no. So I would say give it to at least your sophomore year in college. Or if you don't go to college, which most people don't, you know, give yourself a year outside, maybe a year and a half outside of being in high school, so that you learn yourself, right? At the end of the day, like you wanna be with somebody who knows themselves, and of course you grow as time goes, and you'll change. Like your desires and your ideas and whatever will change. And some people, they do marry their high school sweethearts, so you can still be friends with this person, but I wouldn't necessarily call it, like if you're seriously, intentionally dating, you want to wait until, like you said, you're mature. Right? Maturity comes into it too, because at such a young age, I mean, what are we really doing? Are your parents going to take you to the movies?
Yeah, no.
You can't drive. Like at that point, like what are we doing?
They'll be like, what are you watching at the movies? We have TV at home.
I mean, really though, like why? Yeah. I just again, like dating should really be looked at like an opportunity to make friends. Like just make friends. I'm gonna say this, and I don't say this like I don't wish that I didn't get married younger. Like, I kind of wish that I had the opportunity to date after I got out of college.
Right.
Obviously, I didn't because I was already married. But I kind of wish I would, because knowing who I am now, I would have loved to date. Like, I would have loved, because I love people already, and I would have loved to just, like, go out, be myself, have a meal with someone, learn about who they are, and just say, like, hey, like, where are you trying to go? Like, just that whole process of dating is actually really beautiful. It's a really beautiful process.
I don't know.
I really feel like, and maybe because I'm out here, like, and I feel like if you're someone who's okay with putting yourself out there, of course you don't want to just put yourself out there for just anybody. You have standards, have your standards.
Right.
Okay, it's important. But I don't know. I just in my mind, I would have liked to try what it's like on that side.
Right. Let me tell you, my side of the world, it's a struggle, especially nowadays, especially with like social media, number one, right? You have people growing up in the social media age, relying on social media to tell them how they should behave.
Okay.
And their expectations in life. Like, I hear like random forums on the spiritual world or spiritual word, whatever it is, or shade room, like, you know, should a guy pay for a meal, or
like,
you know, those type of things.
Okay,
I feel like people get hung up on what dating should be like or what marriage should be like based off of what the social media world is, and it isn't really based on, like, there's no Christian foundation.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just also don't think we really understand the concepts of dating and what it should be. And I like how you describe it as you're evaluating the person versus as, you know, we are going out to just having a meal. Yeah, we're testing the waters. Like, that's not what it's about, right?
Yeah. At that point, you're not serious.
Right. And I think also, like, because when, you know, you're finishing college, you're now getting into your career. Some people, it takes them longer than others, right? And the burden of, you know, finances, the burden of bills, you know, now you're taking care of, you know, your individual families at home. There's just so many different factors that in college you don't consider, because you're not paying no bills. Hopefully you're not paying any bills. You're just focused on school and getting to know people. So I think there's definitely a blessing in dating in college. But there's also a blessing in dating outside, right? When you meet somebody where you're both financially stable, you're able to create memories and experiences without the financial burdens, right? So the memories are different, the bonding is different.
The experiences are different.
Absolutely. And, you know,
we were broke as a joke. When we got married, we had no money.
But no money. No money. But you guys have money now. Okay? Period.
Then we were going to like local restaurants and hanging out, you know, at the cafe.
Okay. We supported local businesses.
We make it work. Okay, we made it work. We made it far. But I agree, like, when you're older, you do have more of the independence and the freedom to be able to just have fun. Like, just live your life. It's really supposed to be, I think, a fun process.
Yes.
And because, you know, dating has evolved in so many different ways with the entanglement and the situationships, it can actually be really intimidating. Like, I know a lot of girls, like young girls who I've had conversations with, who are like, you know, I'm scared, or like, I don't know what to do, or like, I don't have experience. Like,
where do you get the experience?
Yeah. Like, listen, like, we're all learning. Like, Like, I've never been married before. Like, this is my one and only marriage, and I like being able to learn with my husband. Like, I like being able to go on the like, I don't know everything, right? And now I think when you're younger, you want to know all the answers. Once you get older, you're kind of like okay with saying, like, you're more confident in it. So build your confidence, build who you are first, and then add someone to the equation, because it just adds a whole nother layer when you're not thinking about another person. Like, well, I guess we'll get into like all the things that they don't really prepare you when you get into marriage until you're in it. But yeah, like, really, really seeing dating as this is a opportunity for me to make a new friend, see where it could go. Right. Obviously, I'm attracted to this person, so maybe, you know, it could be something that's more than just a friendship. But I'm also going to maintain and guard my heart in the process. I'm going into it with the mindset that I'm not going to lose my heart. Right. Like, I'm going to keep my heart intact. Yeah. And I can still have a good time. That's right. Whereas for me, like, when I was dating back in the day, like, I just let my heart go everywhere, like, you know. And so it was hard. It was hard for me. It was hard. And it was hard to put that back together.
Yeah.
You're gonna be putting that back together for years.
Yeah. No, one thing is so funny. I remember this Bible verse that one of our youth teachers taught us, and now I'm taking it to heart. But don't awaken love
before it.
Don't awaken love.
Used to tell me that all the time, and I used to hate it. I used to hate. I'm sorry, mommy. I used to hate when she said it because I was like, what's the point? Now that I'm married, now I know.
Now I understand.
I will be telling my kids that in the future because now I'm like, wow, like you really don't. There's a time and there's a season. I think I heard someone say this one time on in social media. Like, you really should enjoy the seasons of your life because there will come a time where your singleness is over. Like, I have crossed into new territory.
Yes.
Like, it's not. I'm not going back. And there are good times in marriage, but then there are also hard times in marriage, right? And so enjoy the season that you're in. I think sometimes
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, enjoy. Listen, like, we rush, and now I'm actually very intentional with a lot of my friends because I know, like, marriage is not something that's simple or something to take lighthearted. Like, nowadays, because I know back in the day, like, I used to be like, oh my gosh, you're dating someone. They probably date for, like, 2 or 3 days. I'm like, oh my God, like, your baby, you kind of jump super far.
Right.
But if the relationship doesn't work out, then that person's like, oh, I didn't, you kind of get, like, shy or whatever. So now I'm intentional about just allowing people the time to figure it out because it's not easy. Who you marry is very important too.
Ooh, yes.
You don't need to just be jumping into relationships or commitments with just anybody and everybody because, again, like, your marriage is the most vulnerable relationship you have with anybody. Like,
right.
Your parents don't even know you as much as your husband will know you, right? Like, your siblings don't know, your friends don't know. Like, there are days where I be in my house and I'm like, hey, wow, so nobody's coming to look for me today. Like, nobody, like, you guys just really, like, let me go. Like,
right.
And it's true. Like, you make the commitment before God and before man that you two are going to go through life together. And like I said, there's going to be good times and bad times. So just knowing who you marry is so important. Like, having the right person. And that starts with the dating. That starts with evaluating. That starts with getting to know this person. And I think we talked about this too. Having accountability.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like having accountability because listen, I know people stop dating people in the dark. Don't do that.
I want to talk about that because
like, don't do that.
It be bothering me when my friends don't be telling me who they're dating, but yes, WhatsApping you wedding invitations.
No.
What?
No.
And I want to talk like who kept you accountable?
Yeah.
When you guys were dating, who was watching you?
It's dangerous.
God was watching, but who else was watching? Yeah. Who was there? You know what I'm saying?
And go ahead.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, there is a whole discussion right now about, not necessarily, do I keep my dating process a secret, but do I keep it private? Do I tell anybody? Do I not tell anybody? So I do want to, because I think accountability is important in the sense of, making sure that from a Christian perspective, you guys are not falling into anything that you shouldn't be falling into, right? But also from a woman's perspective, I know when I'm in a relationship, I don't see anything. Love is blind to me. When I'm in love, like, I don't see a single thing.
Perfect.
Right. So I think, like, for me, it's important for my friends to know who I'm dating because they should be able to identify what the red flags from his perspective. And also maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, right? And from there, I'm able to learn, how to navigate. Yeah. So, like, from your perspective, when you were dating, what was the accountability like?
Jesus. Okay, so, like I said, it's funny. So we were a big group of friends. I think we were a group of, like, 6 or 8. And we all actually married each other. Wow. We were one big friend group. It's kind of like friends. Like, we were all one big friend group. And we were all, just friends in the beginning, and then slowly but surely we started breaking off and getting into relationships. And because we were all friends, we just stayed friends, like holding each other accountable. Like, we would go on double dates with each other. Like, we would just be we would try our best to just be really, really intentional about it. And I think even when it comes to accountability, like, if you're a friend on the outside looking at another friend who's dating, it's important to be gracious. Right. Because that person is probably in love and they probably can't think straight.
They can't.
They can't see straight.
Jesus
so,
are fluid.
everything is happening.
Everything is fluid.
So it's important to be gracious and to make it known that like I'm looking. I have your best interest at heart.
Right.
I want good things for you. Like I want you to find love, but I also want to make sure that you're protected, that you're okay, right?
Yeah.
And I think what we do wrong sometimes is like if it's a secret or whatever, then people kind of blow up and get offended or don't do that because then you'll just run people away, and that's how it just becomes more and more secretive. So, like I said, for me and Quentin, we had curfews. Like legit
that you guys set for each other.
We set for ourselves, and we also told our friends so they could hold us accountable because we wouldn't hold ourselves accountable sometimes. 9 o'clock would come and we'd be like, yeah, I think we can hold on until 9:30. And then our friends would be calling us, and I had a roommate at the time, and she had my location on my phone. Quentin's best man, his best friend, had his location on his phone too. The month before our wedding, so we got married in August, so in July, Quentin actually ended up moving in with one of our friends just for more accountability.
Wow.
Yeah, because
it's serious.
It's serious.
Yeah.
Like when you know that you're trying to wait until marriage, you have to do everything. Okay, like just do everything to keep yourself pure because you know it's not. For me, it's not worth the risk of like one night, like okay, I'm just gonna slip up, and then again, you're heartbroken. You have to guard your heart. If your intention is to guard your heart, guard it all the way through.
Right.
All the way through, because, and there will come a day. I know for me, when I was like I said, we dated for 4 years. Don't recommend it. In that time, as time goes, the word says like you will be burning, like as time goes, and so. So you have to just know, Lord, it's going to end. Like there will come a day where we will be married and we won't have to worry about that like we do in dating. Not necessarily anymore, but like we do in dating. So we have to do whatever means necessary for that accountability.
That's very interesting. You shared the locations. You
we were for real. Like,
that's crazy because my dates, we left late.
We did, and again, it's also different when you're older, right? When you're older, and maybe if you're like an adult and maybe you live by yourself, you just hold the boundary of like you don't stay at my house by myself. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't. You see what I'm saying? Like if you're really, and we're talking like we're speaking specifically to like Christian, like people who want to date in a way that honors God. You have to do whatever's necessary. Like I have, again, there's grace for everybody. But again, you have to be honest with yourself. So for me and Quentin, like we were very honest with ourselves, and I don't want to say this to seem like we were like holier than thou, but because we were honest with ourselves, we knew what we could and couldn't do. So we didn't actually kiss until like 7 months into our relationship.
Wow.
We could have lasted a year, but the moonlight was
shining.
Wow. And, we couldn't help it. But it was, I think those first maybe like 7 months of our relationship, we were the most like, I don't say calm, but like we were able, like the temptation wasn't there. Right. Because we didn't awaken the door for love. Once love started flowing, then the accountability had to get stronger as time went on. I mean, it just had to. Yeah. Because we were really
That's really interesting. I think like in my experience, especially dating in the Christian world, it's hard to find a guy that's on the same page with you about, not having sex. It's really, really hard. Just because guys, the emotions and the hormones, I don't know if you guys have raging hormones compared to women. I feel like we are able to have a bit more self-control. And I don't know, I mean, you guys can argue with me about it, but I think how important was self-control, and then how did it play into your marriage?
Yeah. I mean, it's very important. Self-control, self-control first and foremost is about yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to know, for me, I can't kiss Quentin when we were dating because kissing leads to other things.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Your parents tell you, but listen, it's true.
It's true. Like kissing would lead to other things, and because we both had relationships where we had experienced other things, it's like you've already trained your body, the biology. You've already trained your physiology to respond in that way. Right. So if you don't want to go in that direction,
don't do it.
The Bible says flee. Flee from them, like flee. So run the other direction. Yeah. Have that accountability. So self-control again begins with self. It's knowing that, and it's really, it's a grace thing. I remember, there were days where I'm not gonna lie, like I'd be weak, and then Quentin would have to be the one to say, "Hey, love, like I'm going home now."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Oh, sunshine, why do you
have to go?"
You know what I mean? And I had a friend who said, like, he's not punishing you, he's protecting you. Right? And
I love
and
that.
knowing like. That's really how you know you're with someone who really cares about your heart at the end of the day. Like, someone who really, really cares about the boundaries that you've set is going to honor that. It's going to respect that. And it's going to say, you know what, like, even though, again, self-control is about self, even though I might want this, this is for you in the long run. And when you get into marriage, sex and marriage is a completely different mindset shift. Because I think sex outside of marriage, it's about, or even just any type of, like, sexual act, it's about what can I get from
out of it, right.
Versus sex and marriage is all about giving.
Yes.
It's giving to the other person. It's being able to see the other person saying, like, hey, like, I care about you. And so having that, if you're so used to taking, dating, when you get into marriage, you're gonna do the same thing. You're just not gonna, like I said, it's not a switch. Whoever you are outside, it will come in, like, it'll be there inside too. So practice those habits early, so then that becomes your norm when you are married in the long run.
Right. Yeah, that's good advice. So I want to kind of shift the conversation.
Okay.
I want to talk about the marriage process. Like you're now engaged. You have told the church leaders, I have found my flower, my one and only, my sugar and my cuckoo. And you're going to the marriage process because this is a big question mark, right? A lot of us don't know what actually happens. We know there's a marriage committee. We know there's marriage counseling. What do you guys talk about?
What do we do?
What do you do? And then, is it actually helpful? Because, I've gotten mixed reviews depending on, who you did the process with.
Yeah.
It was either a great experience or you didn't learn anything, right? And you just feel unprepared going into marriage. Yeah. So I want to talk about, marriage committee. What did they ask you?
What did they ask you?
What did they tell you?
Yeah. So I think. And I'll be honest, I think we have to recognize, I had a conversation with my mom the other day, like, just in general, like, Mom, like, have you talked to my brother about sex? Like, my brother's 16 now. I'm like, Mommy, have you had the conversation with Dylan about sex? And she's like, yeah, I talked to him about it. And so I asked her, I said, Dylan, did Mommy have this conversation with you? Well, first I asked him, like, Dylan, what is it? And then he explained to me what it was. I said, did Mommy and Daddy talk to you about that? He's like, no. So in her mind, she thought she had the conversation.
Right.
But Dylan, he didn't take that away that was a conversation, right? So then what was talked about?
Right.
I think that's kind of what happened in the marriage committee. Like I feel like that's what kind of happened. Like they maybe have said, they gave me advice, and really more of it was focused on, for me, I remember when we went through it, they do it separately. So they do, for me, it was just me and the marriage committee, and then they would Zoom call my husband because he wasn't part of Pentecost, so they Zoom call him and have a separate conversation with him. For my conversation, a lot of it was, is he a Christian? Does he follow the Lord? Right? Obviously, he's not in Pentecost, so like they didn't know him, so he was outside, but his family was part of it at some point, and so there was that, like, knowing who they are.
Right.
I think if it was in Ghana, and I think a lot of how they do it is like based on if it was Ghana, not like it's America. Because that's interesting. There was some like investigation process that happened.
Yeah, all right. Listen, I've heard one thing about the marriage committee. They will find your ex-girlfriend in the bush, in the midst of a forest in Ghana. Like they're really good about the investigation process.
But I think they do that, and I've never been to Ghana, and I was born in the States, so I really don't know. But in my understanding, if you're in Ghana, like marrying someone, because you don't really know where their family might be from,
right?
It's a way of protecting. It's a way of making sure, like, is this person vetted, right? Are they who they say they are, right? Or are they a stranger somewhere?
Yeah, it's so funny. I was watching a video that somebody had posted on TikTok, and they were making fun of like the marriage committee of like it was a video of a man. I guess he was playing video games, and he got a call that the marriage committee was coming over, and so he started to like clean his room. He had condoms next to the Bible, and he started to like some shady stuff, and people were in the comments like, yeah, that's Pentecost. Like, they're always gonna find out.
But then my question is like, let's be real. Like, what if someone marries someone who's not Ghanaian?
What are they going to do? How are they going to investigate?
How are you going to investigate? We're going to go to these people's house like, hello, we are here to investigate.
Right. We want to see how, what is your room?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think think the process makes sense for people who are in the culture,
Ghanaian,
the Ghanaian culture,
right?
But we have to give more of like a wholehearted perspective of why we're doing it. For me, to be honest, like because I grew up in America, and I my sisters and I, like, we would watch TV and stuff like that. Like, all that we saw were American weddings,
right?
Like a white dress. Like, I never knew the process that was required for like the culture. And that was really hard for me because I learned it as I was going through it.
Yes.
And so a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm going to do it this way. And then I'd be like told like, oh no, that's not the way we do it. I'm like, okay, so what is the way? And why am I just now
finding it out
now while I'm going through it? So listen, I read a book on all the things that you were supposed to know, but nobody told you.
Right.
Listen,
honestly.
All the things
I need to read that book.
Listen. And it just wasn't, I think it was, I think some of the principles that they said were pretty good in the sense that, like, you know, marriage, you know, you're going into it and it's you're not really gonna understand it until you're in it. I think that's very true, because when you're in it, you know, you really get a sense of like, okay, I have to be selfless, I have to balance all the things. But a lot of what they focused on was just like, have you had sex? Has the other person had sex?
Right.
Can the person's, does it function? Does
it work?
Like, that's literally what they would ask. And I feel like that.
But the thing is, like,
an okay question. But again, it wasn't an in-depth. I wish they would have talked about communication. I wish we would have talked about finances.
Because I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think? I mean, are you talking about just committee, or also talking about counseling as well?
Both, because they're counseling. We actually did counseling. I think we did the counseling part maybe like a week before our wedding.
Okay.
Which I think was too late.
Because I thought counseling was the 6-month process. At least that was my understanding. So yours wasn't.
Maybe it wasn't. Yeah, I don't remember.
No.
I
maybe it's new.
I think ours may have been like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before our wedding.
Okay.
Our marriage counseling.
Right.
The committee came a lot sooner because they had to like meet with us and things like that. Just to verify a lot of things. But we also did counseling because we live in Macon. We also did counseling with our church back then. And so that was good. I mean, I would even recommend, like, you can never have, I think you have to understand that everyone's marriage is different. Right. So you can never get too much advice, but you should take each advice with a grain of salt, right? Because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Right? Yeah. So I would even recommend, like, if you're going to do marriage counseling with your church, see if there's, like, a therapist nearby, like a clinical therapist who can walk you through marriage. Because they will talk about the like, full breadth of it. And I think with the church, they very much limited to, like, sex and, like, other things. Basically, the marriage committee, like, I think if they weren't as robust as I would have wanted them to be, like, they didn't touch on all the topics. Like, the big topic for me that I felt that no one really prepared me for, I was homesick for like 2 months. Like, at some point I was like, hey, I think I miss my parents. Like, I miss my siblings, you know? And I'm like, wow, like, really, like, nobody really, like, checks on you after you're married. You know, you get married and they kind of, like,
they let you go.
They just kind of forget about you. And I think part of it is, like, out of respect, like, they want you to just kind of have time with your husband. But, like, it's still a big transition. Like, check on your married friends, guys.
Check on your married friends, yes,
for
sure. I'll call you a month after.
Give it at least 1 month and then we'll call you. Yeah. But I think even too, like, so, I mean, check on your friends, but because, again, most things in marriage no one will see. And because nobody talks about it, it just goes unsaid. Like, you just kind of have to deal with it on yourself. And
but what are the things that, like, you wished the marriage counseling or marriage committee had addressed?
I wish they would have talked about communication. Okay. I wish they would have talked about conflict.
Conflict, yes.
Like, how to deal with conflict in marriage, because you've made a commitment to this person, that for better or for worse, but when there is a conflict, because there will be.
Yes.
How do you push through that?
Right.
Who do you call? Who is in your corner that you can actually call, who's been married, who's someone you can trust, and you can say, hey, we're having this issue. Because I think a lot of times, you know, people have issues, but because, we keep everything to ourselves.
Right.
Then you just suffer in silence.
Yeah.
You know, like, you don't want that. How do you address conflict? Who is a safe person? Who in the church is, like, the marriage person that people can trust their issues with and that it will remain protected?
Right.
That might be something.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I've always been told, don't tell anybody about your marriage. It should be between you two. Even our church had a little Galentine's, and one of the ladies was saying, I don't believe in bringing in a third party to help solve my issues, because if my husband and I can't solve the issues ourselves, then nobody else can help us, because they don't know a situation, which was an interesting perspective. But I think, you know, when you're in the moment where you're both angry and you can't agree, you're so focused on the anger that you're not really seeing the problem that you need to solve.
I think it depends. So what I would say is try to work it out with you and your husband first, right? So like my husband, he's the type of person where my husband is a therapist, and he likes different perspectives. So his default is like, okay, if we're making a decision, he wants someone else's opinion.
Right.
And my thing is like, how about we try it? Kind of like science, right?
Right.
Test it out yourself, get a good hypothesis, see your experiment, figure out your results, and then realize, okay, we still haven't come to the conclusion we wanted to. Let's bring in someone else that we know, that we trust, who is also married, who might be able to give us a new perspective.
Right.
So I would try it out first, you and your husband. But if it's something that's a consistent issue in your marriage, like for example, like I have friends of mine who have struggles with finances or struggles with sex. Yeah. And it's like, if this is a persistent issue, at some point you need outside help. Right. You need to come out and say like, okay, hey, this is where we're having troubles. Like, do you have any resources? Do you have any information? And even if it's not a friend, if you don't feel like you can talk to a friend about it, there has to be somebody in the church that is someone that's trusted. And that's
really, the struggle.
That's hard, because it's like, there's this feeling of like, okay, if we tell them, are they going to share? Are they going to think that, my marriage, something's wrong with my marriage, right? I do believe in like, don't really tell your parents your marriage issues. This is why. Let me tell you why. Because your parents love you, right? And they are learning to love your spouse. And no matter how long you've been with your spouse, they don't really know your spouse. You love your spouse deeply, but they love him because you love him, right? And so if there's an issue, they'll always take your side because they love you, and they don't know them yet. And so it'll create, and you might be able to forget about an issue, but they won't.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And so then they'll be looking at the person like, should I look at this person? You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, wow, right? They'll continue to think about that in your mind. So I would keep it away from, like your parents and your family only, not because you don't love them, but because you want to maintain a healthy relationship with your in-laws, right?
No, that's true.
And even with your siblings too, depending on how close you are with your siblings. But I would definitely say like, and it kind of goes back to accountability, right? Whoever was in your accountability group, especially if they're married, like let that continue on. Like our friend group that we have, like we've decided, we've like chosen to be each other's like covenant friends.
So continuing on the question, what else would you wish they would have addressed? Because you said communication, accountability, conflict. What else? Finances, yes. Finances.
Especially when when you're in college, obviously you don't really have your own bills. But once you get out of college and you're starting to learn how to pay your bills, right, it is a transition. When you're married, your money becomes our money.
Yes.
Okay, so like that's a transition if you're not used to that. And so just learning how to really become one, right, in your finances, that's really big. And everyone does their finances a little different depending on how their family works, but just knowing essentially like the principles of understanding, like, do you both believe in tithing, right? Like, do you both believe? You see what I'm saying? Like,
tithing is I actually never even thought about like how do you tithe, especially if you have joint accounts and then you have separate accounts. How do you tithe that? That's very interesting. Yeah.
So the way we do it is we just tithe off of the gross income. We both get paid, and then we just tithe off of that. Okay. And then we have quite a few accounts. We're a little excessive. It's only because it's trying to keep it organized. So we both have separate checking accounts. Okay. For our spending money. So we give ourselves spending money, and then we have our bills, which is everything that is supposed to go towards bills. And I have a card that's like very plain and very boring. That's how I know like it's not meant for fun. And then I have my fun card that's like flowery and stuff. And then we have emergency fund, a giving, savings. I'm trying to think about my account.
What is giving, savings?
Giving, so like just if we want to give like something to our families, if we want to give for maybe like church event or something like that, like we have something separate that we kind of put away over time. Because again,
I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, I think everyone will do it differently. I know for me, like before I got married, like that was how I kind of kept up with stuff. Because I'm not very good of like like, you know, your rent money, your spending money, all of it's in one account. It's gonna get spent.
Yeah,
like, it's gonna get spent.
Yeah,
so I had to kind of separate it that way, and it's also helpful for you. Also, just keeping in mind, if you know, everyone comes from different families and they have different spending habits. So if
right.
you're from a family that is used to spending, but your husband might not be.
That's a conversation.
It's a conversation,
yes.
and like knowing how to have that conversation in a way that'll still keep you married.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Is key, and we do these things. Quentin came up with the name. We have weekly State of the Union meetings.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, where you guys discuss
we
your
sit
finances.
Down and we go through everything. We talk about our like spiritual life. We talk about finances. We talk about our weekly.
Okay.
Things. Yeah, these are the things that like we kind of had to learn, like, because we honestly messed up a lot. Like we got together and we got married and we were making plans again, because now you're married to someone else, so you have to think about your plan as it affects the other person. Like,
right.
Okay, honey, like I'm supposed to be here at this day at this time. Like, who's gonna make dinner? And also, like, it's not like your wife we are working now, so,
right?
Like, I'm not home every day.
It's not every day you're cooking. It's not every day. It's not every day. It's not every day.
It's not every day you're cooking. I will say the first maybe like month I was cooking every day, and I was like, this is
that's
horrible.
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah. And so we had to pivot. So just knowing how to maintain your home, like, that was a conversation that I wish we had.
I think there's an expectation of, like, as a woman, you have to cook. You have to upkeep the home and whatever. But what if you don't like to cook? Like, me personally, I don't like cooking.
Yeah.
If it's more than 30 minutes, I'm not going to do it.
It's too much.
It's too much.
Yeah. And my husband grew up in a family where they ate African food a lot. And
yeah.
I mean, we did, but, like, we were the type that were like, if we don't want it, we don't have to eat it.
Right.
And so getting married, he wanted African. Now he's very gracious. He was like, honey, can you try like some African food? And I would try. And it took me a very long time. So I'm looking for ways to do it that doesn't take forever. And again, it's kind of a service to your spouse. So we try to do like once a month, like different African food, like if I can try. Yeah. Just being able to learn different things. So just learning how to maintain the home is huge. And I feel like the pressure is on women to do it all and to be the one that figures it out, when I do think women have a better sense of like organizing and like aesthetics versus guys are just trying to just get stuff done.
Right.
So like there's no heart in it. The love is not there. Yeah. Right. And so there's that beauty. Women bring that to the table. We bring that consistency and that nurturing spirit. But then guys, they also kind of keep things in order too. Right. So it's just a balance. But I like, again, a lot of what we talked about in the marriage community was very surface level. I wish they would have kind of gone in depth. Right. Of like, here's what to expect going into your marriage. Granted, we had like some ups and downs, but nothing like super like stark, because we had spent already 4 years together, so we really knew each other. We just never lived together. Yeah. So like even the living together, like that's a whole nother conversation. Like, how do you ever live with a man? Like, men are different. You know what I mean?
Men are very different.
Men are different.
And I was gonna actually ask you, like, once you said I do's and you moved in, what were things that surprised you, that you were like, hey, is that how you are? Is this how you behave? My goodness.
I think the biggest thing, so the way it happened, he ended up moving into my apartment. So I already had an apartment with a roommate, and she had moved out, and then he had moved in. And so that was a pretty seamless process. He had already started moving some of his stuff, so it wasn't like overload with stuff. So I kind of got used to it, and he would like set up his side, so it kind of, I tried to make it a very like seamless process, right? So it wouldn't just be like night and day, and that helped me. But what was I surprised by living with a man? I think the biggest thing, and this is probably just me, I like a really clean kitchen. Yeah. And my husband.
Oh, he does his best.
He used every dish in the dish in his kitchen.
Not every dish.
Leave it in the sink. And we had, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit OCD, because I was like, okay, honey, like, we gotta do the dishes, and I would say we're gonna do the dishes before we eat. And, like, the man is hungry. Hey, I'm hungry. I'll do the dishes after. I actually had it was our pastor Macon. His wife had told me, like, because I was really onto him about doing the dishes, and even how he did it, I didn't like it. And she was like, are the dishes getting done? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, then it doesn't matter how it's getting done. It's getting done. Yeah. So those are the things too, like, pick and choose your battles. Right. Like, there are some, you win some, you lose some, right? As long as it's getting done, we've kind of made an agreement now where, like, I'll do the dishes and I'll put them on the rack, because we don't really use our dishwasher. I'll put them on the rack, and then he'll empty it in the morning.
Yeah.
So I come to a clean kitchen. So it's
Right.
just, again, compromising you live. But I think for me, that was like the biggest surprise. I mean, I thought I'd be weirded out with like sleeping next to somebody.
Yeah.
But like when you love somebody, you don't care. Like you're like, please come and hold me. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really make a difference.
Hey, come and hold me. Somebody come and hold you.
It doesn't make a difference. But I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's surprising. I don't think so.
No?
Wow.
He picks up the towel from the
Clean
floor.
is very clean.
Oh,
My
wow.
husband is I have a very clean
Okay.
husband. Yeah.
That's
I was
really
like
good.
the first maybe month of our marriage, I was working a lot.
Mhm.
The way my job was, it was just kind of taking over my life.
Yeah.
And I quit him. He was cooking. He was cleaning. He was a better wife than I was.
Wow.
The first month.
Okay,
Wow,
we like that.
I was like, oh my. I was like,
You're the husband.
I said, I'm just chilling. I'll come home from work and I'll be tired. So it was definitely it was really, really sweet. And so now it kind of roles are flipped because he's working and I'm finishing school, and so like there's that give and take too.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know anything else other than that.
Okay. Okay, now we are gonna get deep. You guys, we are gonna get deep.
We are good. I
have to ask these questions, you know?
Yeah.
I gotta know. I wanna talk about sex. The sex. Yes, the making of the love. The union.
Whoa.
Okay, so obviously, you guys didn't sleep together before you got married.
Correct.
So what were your expectations, and then going into your wedding night, honeymoon night, whatever night, and then were you prepared for it?
Yeah.
Were you not? Was it like, oh my God?
Yeah.
You know, was it a process?
Yeah.
Did it just happen, or it took a few days, a few weeks?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
So, for me, I feel like I never really had a sex talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one really sat me down and was like, this is what it is. Just the basic biology. Like,
right.
This is what it is. This is how it works. So a lot of what I learned came from one, curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Again, dating and just being in relationships and learning from other people, learning from friends. And so you kind of get these little pieces here and there. And also I had this conversation with my mom. Growing up, we used to call sex, like me and my sisters, we would call it like doing the nasty. Like,
yeah.
Doing the nasty. And I had this conversation with my mom yesterday, and I was like, Ma, like, I wish you guys wouldn't have called it that, because your wole life you say is doing the nasty, and then I'm supposed to get married and I'm supposed to do the I'm like, why? Doing the nasty. I'm like, it just has this negative context in your mind, and so I was like, we need to reframe it to something else. And so we were talking, and I actually like this reframing of like, sex outside of marriage is unholy, and sex in marriage is holy.
Yeah.
Rather than nasty, you don't want to use like a negative.
It's a holy
word.
thing.
It's just a holy thing, right?
Yeah.
And then it becomes something that you look forward to rather than something you're afraid of. For
yeah.
me, I can't necessarily. I mean, there was a sense of like fear, or more of like curiosity. Like I don't know how it's gonna work. Like, I was concerned. Honestly, I was like, how are these things gonna happen?
I mean, some girls are like terrified because they're hearing all of these horror stories that
which
is not the most pleasurable experience for women versus for guys, and so they go into it, they're like shaking and they're like, I can't do this.
I had a really good friend who told me, she was like, for her going into sex when she got married, she had prepared physically, but she didn't prepare herself mentally.
Like, talk about that.
Yeah, mentally. And I think for women it's different than guys. I'm gonna speak to women because I am a woman. Like when you go into it, right? Obviously it's vulnerable. I mean, this is probably the first time you've ever been fully naked in front of another human being. And women, we think a lot about our insecurities. We're thinking about our stomach. We're thinking about, are my legs shaved? Are my armpits clean? All the things.
My 6 flaws.
Am I looking like I'm supposed to be looking? You know
right.
what I'm saying? Guys are not worried about that. And so you're constantly, and you already might be nervous because of it. And so physically, you're going to, because of what you're thinking, you're going to tense up. But if you allow yourself to relax, like that's the key in intimacy and sex. You have to relax and allow yourself just to be there to receive the moment. Otherwise, it's going to hurt. Like it's going to hurt. And no one tells you this. I know I had this experience where I would burn after sex. Like it would physically be uncomfortable. And I'm like, what is going on? And also just general basic hygiene.
Right.
Like basic 101. I think I had a conversation with my friend. Like I had an auntie one time who was explaining to me, my sister, like how to clean your vagina. And she was basically encouraging us to like stick your finger up there and like scrape around, which is horrible.
Oh,
because,
my eyes twitching.
Yeah, like
you're not supposed to do that.
But like in your mind, you're like, wait, because the way your body is set up, your vagina has a cleaning mechanism.
Right.
Like it has a pH level that it likes to maintain that kills bacteria. You know, every month when you have your period or you have discharge, that is your vagina cleaning itself out.
Right.
You do not need to help it.
Right.
It knows what it's doing.
That's right.
And the same way when in sex, it will adjust. It's a muscle. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to grow and expand and stretch and all the things. But you have to allow yourself to get there. And even understanding, I wish, you know, we had like just basic sex ed, because, you know, there are stages of sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's, I know climax is top, but then there's like plateau. Oh, it's excitement. There's 4 stages. It's like excitement.
Hey, I didn't learn about this.
No, yeah, there's 4.
Sex
I'll have
ed,
to look it up.
They didn't teach me this.
There's a book, guys. I'll recommend
There's a book.
There's a book.
Wow,
yes.
there's a book.
One of our
guys.
friends who got married, they really wanted us to get this book. We were like, yeah, we'll get it. They ended up buying it, 1 copy for each of us and sending it to our house.
I love it.
Like, it was that important. And in the book, it was from a Christian psychologist who just explains this is what it is. And the first thing he says is, sex is meant to be a safe, enjoyable, mutually pleasurable experience.
Right.
Like, that's the framework we should be going into it.
Yeah.
So for me, all the years of my life, my framework was, it's nasty, don't do it, right away from it, right? And so the switch to, like, you know, I'm supposed to be fleeing it, and then all of a sudden I'm supposed to enjoy it. It was hard. It was just a hard switch for me. But what I did remember from the book was, it's meant to be safe.
Right.
And so I really went into, like, our wedding night with this mentality of, like, this is a safe space. Like, I don't have to be, like, if it wasn't safe, my parents wouldn't have let me go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that the whole church is letting me go. Like, everybody was waving goodbye, you know? And I'm thinking, okay, so this is a safe space. Like, I'm okay here.
Mm-hmm.
I can be okay in this space.
Right.
And allowing myself to relax, which takes a lot of mental brain space when you've never been in an environment like that before. You know, you kind of get nervous, you kind of get tensed up. And my husband was very gracious. He was like, okay, like, you know, if you want to take a shower first, I'll wait over here, and then I'll go outside when you're ready. You know, so he was very gracious with the process. Again, knowing that it was my first time, like, wanting it to be a very safe and memorable, but also, like, not intimidating experience, you know, while you're going into it. So I guess for women who just, you know, whether you're, and I think there's different stages. So, like, if you're engaged, there's, like, a whole conversation about how you need to prepare. If you're dating, that's a different conversation if you're single. But I think the starting point is just knowing your basic biology. A lot of women are not aware of what's down there, right?
No, that's true.
Of what's down there.
That's
and
true.
You might not even be aware of, like, how to take care of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, or what you're supposed to do. Because I think, like you said, social media has painted this picture, culture has painted this picture of, like, you know, sexy and all these things. But really, in the reality, like, the way God has made our bodies, it's supposed to work, right? There was a day and age where, you know, Adam and Eve, Mary and Joseph, they weren't worried about all
They
these
weren't
things.
worried about these things.
We are worried about now.
We are worried.
Yeah, and so now it's like, you know, let's go back to, let's allow the Bible to inform us how we should prepare and going into sex and letting it really be an intimate and enjoyable experience with you and your husband.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm going to recommend this. I think, no, it's called A Celebration of Sex.
Wow, A Celebration. I'll leave the link down below.
I'll send it to you. A Celebration of Sex by Dr. I think Thomas something. Very, very, very good resource.
Okay, I'm going to have to get the book, you know, when it's time, so I can learn some things.
I would say, I would recommend it for anyone who's engaged, like right before you get married, because it goes through kind of like the chapters it goes through in general. This is what, like, here's a Christian perspective. Here's what sex is. Here's how it works. Like, the actual, like, diagram of how it works. Here's when it doesn't work. Here's what it actually goes into, like, sex after childbirth.
Ooh, okay.
It's interesting. It's a very good resource.
And so was sex never discussed in marriage counseling or anything like that? Or?
It was, but in the sense, I think it was discussed again with a lot of, like, this is a woman's duty to her husband.
Okay.
I think in that regard, it wasn't really in the sense of, like, this is how you can enjoy and also be part of the interaction. Because I wonder if it's a lot of I think Ghanaian women, like,
they don't enjoy sex.
They don't, which is sad.
It is.
I'm just gonna say it's very sad. We learned very quickly in my marriage that I am the one with the higher libido.
Okay.
In our marriage.
Okay.
Which was a shock to me, and I think it was also a shock to my husband, because every man told him, like, she's not gonna want it every day.
Right.
Just
relax. Calm down.
So when he was like, hey, who is this?
Every other day.
I think it was very much like a shock, and just again knowing yourself, and it's meant. This is a holy space.
Right.
You are allowed to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
You waited your whole life.
Yes.
You better enjoy. Like
yes.
It's actually really sad to me, like people who wait their whole life and they don't enjoy it because they're scared.
Right.
Or now, granted, there are some like actual physical
right.
things that happen that can be improved. There's actually something called a pelvic floor therapist.
Okay.
Typically, OBGYNs will recommend it to you if you're having struggles. So talk to your OBGYN. Women,
right.
if you are going to the gynecologist as just a regular routine care.
Yeah.
And then you're preparing, like I even talked to my doctor when I was about to get married, like, hey, I'm about to get married, I haven't had sex. What can I do medically to
right.
prepare? Mm. And she was like, go to a pelvic floor therapist. And
I didn't even know those existed.
Yeah, so
wow.
they're experts in your pelvic floor. And
right.
so not just for sex, but also for like childbirth, life after childbirth, women often get tears, and so
right.
they can maybe do some remedies or therapies to help you
right.
as you're healing through that. So there are, and again, there are a ton of resources out there. Unfortunately, people don't talk about it
right.
until you get there,
yeah,
or even after, and you feel like it might be too late. Because I did have some friends who we unfortunately didn't necessarily have much of a struggle when it came to sex. Like, it worked within the first few, but I take that to one God, but also to friends that I had who went ahead of me, who kind of helped me with the mental a lot.
Right.
Like just realizing it's a safe space.
Yes.
I just need to relax. It helped a lot. But
yeah.
I did have friends who had some struggles in that. Also, just health 101 for women. You have hymen, right? In your vagina, it's just like a thin layer of flesh that is protecting your vagina from, really protecting your uterus and your cervix from any bacteria.
Yeah.
And during sex, it will break.
Yeah.
But sometimes over time in life, it might break earlier.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I actually think mine broke when I was in elementary school because I fell on the monkey bars.
Yikes.
Yes, I did. I fell and I was bleeding, and I went to the doctor. I went to the nurse, and they were like, sorry, we can't help you.
Yeah.
And I think that was actually and it does hurt when it
yeah.
breaks. So that's probably what women are talking about when they say you could bleed and things like that during
right.
sex. It's your hymen is breaking. And it's just, again, knowing your basic biology. Like biology 101, sex education 1. I don't know if that's something that the church can offer, but I would
right.
highly, and it can be separated.
I agree with you on that. They definitely need to offer it.
Just
yeah.
like, and even, we have nurses, we have doctors, we have so many nurse practitioners, health professions who know this information. Why are we not sharing it? Why are we allowing a lot of young girls to either go into it blindly or go into it just not knowing, right? That this is what it is. And so I know a lot of girls who might be shaving down there that they shouldn't be. Just don't do it, because you're messy. There's a reason why God has placed things where they are.
Right.
Because it's meant to protect you from bacteria and infections and things like that. Because UTIs are also very common, even if you're not having sex, right?
Yeah,
it's just
that's
the
true.
way that your body is developed. So just knowing those things and being aware that there are resources out there to help you, and it's not a shame thing.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really good. I'm glad we talked about it, because I think that's the one aspect that we're always curious about, getting married, what is sex like, and how do you navigate those conversations? I think, if things are not going right,
and
how do you address?
I'll also add to, again, communication in marriage goes across the board.
Yeah.
It goes into your finances, it goes kind of through everything, but also in your sex life. So if you're not communicating, like if your communication is a bit rough during dating, just take that into your mindset as you're going into marriage, because then your communication will be harder in every other area of your life, especially in your sex life. If, as a woman, if you are uncomfortable, if you are, sex is not supposed to be painful. Sex is not supposed to be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to communicate that to your spouse in a way that's still loving and still honoring, but also to help you in the process. And some women, they just quiet the whole time. I'm like, what? I'm like, you're just stiff, and it's sad.
It is very sad.
And I guarantee there are more sexless marriages than we would think or can imagine.
Yeah.
And that is really heartbreaking, because sex is made for husband and wives to remind us of the vow that we made for each other. It's a reminder of the covenant.
That's beautiful.
Wow. So if you're not remembering your covenant, you're gonna do this.
Yes.
You're gonna split apart.
Right.
Sex always brings you back. Always.
Yeah.
No matter how many times me and my husband argue, we'll always come back.
Yes, that's right.
We'll always come back.
I'm coming back to that courtship.
That's true. You have to come back every same time.
Yes.
If you're not building, and intimacy is the beginning of sex. Right?
Yes.
Intimacy starts outside the bedroom. Clean the house. I told my husband he's one clean house away from the night of his dreams.
Wow. I love that.
I hope y'all listen sometime.
I'm typing this line. I'll text my husband.
One clean house. Listen, clean the house. Do something nice for your wife.
Yeah.
What she's not expecting. Because again, that builds intimacy.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So the Single Summit, somebody had talked about sex, and they were talking about, having issues with sex. And one of the panelists was like, oh, well, just tell your husband what it is that you like. But how do you know what you like if you haven't done it before? Mm-hmm. And then I know you mentioned the book, but were there other resources that you turned to?
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, you're talking about when you're married?
When you're married.
Okay, so when you're married, you have to be open.
Yeah.
You have to be open.
But how do you know what to do? Because
I mean, the book honestly is a really great resource to me because it also had pictures.
Okay.
Of different, just different
things you can do.
Things you can do in that. And it's I would say it's for the mature, right? You have to be mature when you're able to.
And married. And married. Don't buy the book now.
Yeah. Don't buy it now. Yeah. But when you're ready, just learning about what. Because the certain positions will help you with different maybe issues you might be having.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one certain way that might be more comfortable, less comfortable if you're pregnant, right? And most pregnant women, they recommend not for you to sit on your back, and so there are different ways just to adjust in that way. But I mean, really, the biggest thing is if you're married and you don't like what's happening, you have to vocalize it, and then be willing to try something different. Yeah, and it could feel awkward. You got to take the awkwardness out of it. Because you're married.
You're married.
Like,
yeah.
You're at this point,
don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
I give myself away.
Like, what are we shy about right now?
Yeah.
Your whole life, the way you were running and hiding and sneaking in the background before, but now, why are you not afraid? You're afraid.
Yeah.
Like, this is your time to explore. Like, God, He has given you your blessing.
Yes.
To explore. So explore. Like, you want to know, this is your chance for you to explore your body and for your husband to also explore what might be good for you in that process. So, I mean, don't be afraid.
Wow. I have so many questions, guys, but
don't be afraid.
The time is running.
The time is ticking on.
Oh, the time is going. So, we're going to end it here. Yeah. I would love to continue. Maybe we'll find some other time. We have to do a part 2 because there's so many questions. But I learned so much. God bless you, my sister. Oh, this is my sister Darice.
I'm trying though.
Oh,
listen.
Show them the ring. Show them the ring. Okay. Period. Okay, all the single ladies. No, God bless you. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for watching. We're gonna figure out how to do a part 2.
Yeah,
yes, for sure. So like and subscribe. Share this video. Leave us a comment. Let us know how this was. If it blessed you. If you learned something. If you want to contribute, leave it down in the comments. Make sure to follow us on social media. Youth Pense USA, and we're gonna see you next time. God bless you. Bye.
See you later.